Dr. Carter approached one of the active stasis chambers with trembling hands. The nameplate read, Dr. Elena Vasquez, Terra Command Historical Archive Division, date of entry, 801, 847 years ago. A small screen next to the chamber showed vital signs that proved someone was still alive inside. Should we wake her up? Grace Thompson asked, studying the chamber's controls. Not yet, Admiral Sullivan said through the communication link from the Endeavor. We need to understand more before we make that decision. Keep exploring the archives. Amy Rodriguez had found a section of the computer system labeled Final Recordings. When she accessed it, video messages began playing on the large screens around the archive chamber. The first message showed a woman in a military uniform standing in what looked like a command center. My name is Admiral Sarah Chen of Terra Command, the woman said. If you are watching this message, it means humanity has returned to the stars and found our hidden archives. What I am about to tell you is the most important information in the galaxy. The recording continued. The war between human factions has reached the point where we must choose between saving the galaxy and preserving our civilization. We have chosen to save the galaxy. Another recording showed an older man in a scientist's coat. I am Dr. Robert Kim, chief designer of the memory engine. This device represents both our greatest achievement and our greatest sacrifice. It can erase not just records and memories, but the very quantum signatures that allow knowledge to exist in the universe. Lisa Harper was reading technical manuals at another terminal. The memory engine worked by manipulating quantum foam, she told the others. It could selectively remove information from the basic structure of reality. Anything erased by the engine would be as if it never existed. Dr. Carter found more video recordings that explained the final days of the Terra Empire. The images showed massive space battles with weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. Cities floating in space were torn apart by energy beams that bent the laws of physics. The war started over a simple question, said one recording. Should humanity transcend physical existence or remain biological beings? But it became something much worse. Both sides developed weapons so powerful that using them damaged space and time itself. Grace discovered detailed records about the other species in the galaxy. Look at this, she said. Complete histories of every alien race we've met. The Zephyrians were barely using fire when humans found them. We taught them everything they know. The records showed how humans had carefully guided dozens of species from primitive civilizations to advanced spacefaring cultures. They had shared technology, knowledge, and resources freely, helping each species develop according to their own nature and abilities. Humans weren't conquerors, Amy realized as she read more files. They were teachers. Every alien species in the galaxy owes their civilization to human guidance. Navigator Chris Baker found stellar engineering records that made him gasp. They didn't just colonize planets, he said. They built planets, moved stars, created entire solar systems designed specifically for different alien species. The records showed projects that spanned thousands of years. Humans had terraformed barren worlds, adjusted the orbits of planets to create perfect conditions for life, and even constructed artificial stars to provide energy for growing civilizations. Paul Mitchell discovered weapon storage areas deep in the station. When the doors opened at his approach, he found chambers filled with devices that looked more like art than weapons. But the energy readings from these beautiful objects were terrifying. These things could probably destroy our entire solar system, Paul said, backing away from the storage area. And this is just one small weapons cache. Security Chief Rick Thompson joined Paul in the weapons area. There are hundreds of these storage rooms throughout the station, Rick said. Even dormant, these weapons generate more energy than our entire fleet combined. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter had found the most important recording of all. It showed the final meeting of the Terra Council, where human leaders made the decision that would end their empire forever. We have created weapons that can unmake reality itself, said a woman identified as Counselor Maria Santos. If we continue this war, we will not just destroy ourselves. We will destroy the possibility of life existing anywhere in the universe. The recording showed the council chamber filled with representatives from across the human empire. Some appeared in person, others as holograms projected from distant star systems. All of them looked exhausted by the long war. "The memory engine is ready," announced Dr. Kim in the recording. "We can erase our entire civilization from quantum reality. All technology, all memories, all records. Humanity will be reduced to primitive levels, but the galaxy will be safe." "What about our colonies?" asked another council member. "Millions of humans live on thousands of worlds." "They will forget," Dr. Kim replied sadly. "The engine will reduce them to primitive tribal levels. Over time, they will redevelop civilization naturally, but without the dangerous knowledge that led to this war." Admiral Chen stood up in the recording. "What about the other species we have guided? They depend on our technology and knowledge." "They will also forget their connection to us," Dr. Kim explained. "But we have embedded basic knowledge in their quantum signatures. They will be able to continue developing, just more slowly and safely." The final vote was unanimous. Every human leader chose to sacrifice their civilization to save the galaxy. Amy found technical details about how the memory engine worked. "It didn't just erase human knowledge," she read aloud. "It carefully preserved certain information in the quantum structure of human DNA. As humans naturally redevelop technology, the old knowledge would slowly resurface. That's why our recent discoveries match ancient human technology," Lisa realized. "We're not inventing new things. We're remembering old things that were hidden in our genetic memory." Grace discovered something else important in the archives. The memory engine had safeguards built into it. Some humans were placed in stasis chambers to survive the erasure. They were supposed to wake up when humanity had naturally redeveloped enough to handle the truth safely. "How many?" Dr. Carter asked. Grace checked the records. "Thousands. Scientists, historians, military leaders, artists, representatives of every part of human civilization. They've been sleeping for over 800,000 years waiting for us to come back." Rick found security protocols that were still active throughout the station. "The ancient humans left protection systems running, automated defenses that respond to human genetic signatures. That's why the station opened for us so easily." Paul discovered that similar hidden facilities existed throughout the galaxy. "There are dozens of these archive stations," he said, "plus weapons caches, research laboratories, and something called restoration nodes that can rebuild human technology quickly." Dr. Carter reached the final section of the archives, which contained instructions for what to do when humanity returned. The message was simple but profound. "When our descendants return to the stars," the recording said, "they will face a choice. They can reclaim their heritage and rule the galaxy as their ancestors did. Or they can use their rediscovered knowledge to build something better than what came before." "The power is yours to take," Admiral Chen said in her final message. "Every weapon, every technology, every secret of the universe that we discovered. But remember why we gave it all up. Power without wisdom leads to destruction." Lisa found activation codes for the ancient systems. "Everything is here," she said in amazement. "Complete technical specifications for faster-than-light travel, matter manipulation, dimensional engineering. We could rebuild the Terra Empire in a matter of years." "The question is," Dr. Carter said quietly, "should we?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Grace checked her scanner readings. "Something's happening," she said. "Ships are approaching. A lot of ships." Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, we've got company. The Zephyrian fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. They've found us." Admiral Sullivan's voice was calm but determined. "It seems our time for learning is over. Now we have to decide what to do with what we've discovered. As the human team prepared to face the aliens who had ruled the galaxy in their absence, the ancient systems throughout the station continued to awaken. For the first time in nearly 1,000,000 years, the true children of Terra were home. The universe was about to remember who had built it. 2 weeks after their secret meeting, Admiral Sullivan received a message that would change everything. It came from Captain Morrison, who had been quietly exploring nearby star systems while the diplomatic talks continued. "Admiral, we found something." Jake's voice crackled through the communication system. "There's an old space station in the Terminus Nebula. The Zephyrians have it marked as forbidden territory, but our scans show it's still powered." Admiral Sullivan met with her team in the secure room again. Ben Carter spread out star charts on the table while Amy Rodriguez pulled up the Zephyrian warnings about the Terminus Nebula. "According to their records," Amy said, "the station contains dangerous artifacts from the first ones. They've had it quarantined for thousands of years. No one is allowed to go near it." Lisa Harper studied the scanner readings from Morrison's ship. "The energy signatures are unlike anything we've seen. But there's something familiar about the power systems." Paul Mitchell looked at the technical data. "Admiral, those power readings match theoretical human fusion designs that we haven't even built yet. How is that possible?" Admiral Sullivan made her decision. "We're going to investigate that station. Captain Morrison, prepare your ship for a covert mission. Dr. Carter, bring your archaeological equipment. We're going to find out what the Zephyrians don't want us to see." 3 days later, the Aurora approached the forbidden station hidden deep in the Terminus Nebula. The nebula provided perfect cover from alien sensors, but it also made navigation dangerous. Captain Morrison had to fly carefully through the swirling gases and energy fields. "There it is," said navigator Chris Baker, pointing at the main screen. "It's bigger than our scans indicated." The space station was enormous, stretching for miles in every direction. It looked old, much older than anything the Zephyrians had shown them, but it was clearly still functional. Lights moved along its surface, and energy readings showed that its systems were active. "The design is completely different from Zephyrian architecture," Dr. Carter observed. "Look at those geometric patterns. They're more like human engineering principles." Grace Thompson, the ship's tech specialist, worked at her computer station. "I'm trying to access their docking systems. The security is incredibly advanced, but—" She paused, looking surprised. "That's strange. The security protocols are responding to our ship's identification codes." "What do you mean?" Captain Morrison asked. "It's like the station recognizes us as authorized personnel. The docking bay is opening automatically." They docked carefully at what appeared to be a maintenance bay. The airlock systems activated on their own, creating a safe passage between the Aurora and the station. When they stepped inside, the lights came on automatically, as if the station had been waiting for them. "The atmosphere is breathable," reported Grace, checking her scanner. "Temperature and pressure are exactly what humans need." "How did it know, Doctor?" Carter led the team deeper into the station. The corridors were wide and well lit, with designs that seemed both alien and familiar at the same time. The walls were covered with symbols that Amy immediately began photographing. "These symbols," Amy said excitedly, "they're definitely related to the ones we saw on the Zephyrian station, but these are much older and more complex. They came to—" a massive door marked with warning symbols. Grace approached the control panel and was surprised when it activated at her touch. "The system is asking for authorization," she said. "But it's not asking in Zephyrian language. It's asking in... I don't know what this language is, but somehow I understand it." She pressed her hand against the scanner. The door opened with a soft hum. Beyond the door was the largest room any of them had ever seen. It stretched up and out until the walls disappeared in shadows. The center of the room was filled with what looked like giant computer systems, all humming with activity. "It's an archive," Dr. Carter said in amazement. "The largest data storage facility I've ever seen. Lisa Harper approached one of the computer terminals. Like everything else on the station, it activated when she came near. Text began appearing on the screen, but not in any alien language they knew. "I can read this," Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. "I don't know how, but I can understand what it says." She began reading from the screen. Archive of the Terra Empire. Historical records spanning 2.7 million years. Warning. Access. Restricted to Terra Command personnel only. The team gathered around the terminal. More text appeared as Lisa touched the controls. "Terra Empire," Dr. Carter repeated. "Terra is the Latin name for Earth." Amy was taking pictures of everything. "If this is real, it means humans had an empire that lasted for millions of years. But that's impossible. Human civilization is only a few thousand years old." Grace had found another terminal. "This one is showing star maps. Look at this." The screen displayed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of systems were marked in blue, with lines connecting them in a vast network. "According to this map," Grace said, "humans controlled over half the galaxy. There were colonies everywhere connected by something called quantum highways that allowed instant travel between star systems." Navigator Chris Baker was studying the stellar charts. "These navigation records show that Earth wasn't just part of this empire. Earth was the capital, the center of everything." Dr. Carter found a section marked Historical Summary and began reading. What he found made his hands shake. "Listen to this," he said. "The Terra Empire was founded 2.7 million years ago when humans first developed faster-than-light travel. For millions of years, humans explored and colonized the galaxy. They created advanced technologies that could manipulate matter, energy, and even time itself." He continued reading. "But something went wrong. About 1 million years ago, a war started between different human factions. One group wanted to use technology to transcend physical existence. The other group wanted to remain biological beings. Lisa had found technical specifications for human technology. "These weapon systems are incredible. They could destroy entire star systems or move planets from one orbit to another. And look at this. They had ships that could travel through different dimensions." Amy discovered records about other species in the galaxy. According to this, humans weren't alone in space, but they weren't conquerors either. The records show that humans helped other species develop technology and join galactic civilization. They were teachers and guides. "The Zephyrians are mentioned here," Amy continued, "along with dozens of other species we met at Nexus Prime. But according to these records, humans uplifted them from primitive civilizations to spacefaring peoples." Chris found navigation logs from ancient human ships. These flight records show regular travel between Earth and thousands of colony worlds. But look at the dates. The last entries are from about 800,000 years ago. Then everything just stops. Dr. Carter had reached the final section of the historical summary. His face was pale as he read. "The war between human factions reached a point where it threatened to destroy all life in the galaxy. The weapons being used were so powerful that they were damaging the fabric of space itself." He paused, reading more carefully. "The remaining human leaders made a desperate decision. They activated something called the memory engine. It was a device that could selectively erase information from reality itself." Grace looked up from her terminal. "Erase information from reality? How is that possible?" "According to this," Dr. Carter continued, "the memory engine could remove knowledge, memories, even physical evidence from the quantum structure of the universe. The human leaders used it to erase almost all traces of human civilization and technology." Lisa had found technical specifications for the memory engine. The device didn't just destroy records. It removed memories from the minds of all surviving humans and reduced them to primitive states. The goal was to give humanity a chance to start over without the dangerous knowledge that had nearly destroyed everything. Amy was translating more records. The other species in the galaxy were also affected. They forgot that humans had uplifted them and helped them develop. Over time, they convinced themselves that they had always been the dominant civilizations. Captain Morrison, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "So you're saying that every human on Earth is descended from refugees who forgot their own history?" "Not refugees," Dr. Carter said, reading the final entries. "Volunteers? The records show that humans chose to give up their empire and their memories to save the galaxy from destruction." Grace discovered something else. "There's more. The memory engine didn't erase everything. It left behind what they called quantum echoes, traces of knowledge buried deep in human genetics that would slowly resurface as humanity developed naturally." That explains why our technology matches theirs, Paul realized. We're not copying alien technology. We're rediscovering our own knowledge. As they continued exploring the archive, more systems came online. Ancient computers that had been dormant for hundreds of thousands of years began activating, responding to human presence after an unimaginably long wait. In the deepest part of the station, they found something that made them all stop and stare. It was a chamber filled with thousands of objects that looked like sleeping pods, each one marked with human names and identification numbers. Dr. Ben Carter sat in his small office aboard the Endeavour, staring at photos he had taken in the Zephyrian archive. Something was bothering him, but he could not put his finger on what it was. The symbols on the alien walls looked too familiar, like words he had seen before but could not remember where. He called Amy Rodriguez to his office. She arrived quickly, carrying her tablet with the alien language files. "Amy, I need your help with something," Ben said. "Look at these symbols from the Zephyrian archive. Do they remind you of anything?" Amy studied the photos carefully. Her eyes grew wide as she looked at each image. "Dr. Carter, these look like the symbols we found in the caves in Egypt last year. But that's impossible. Those caves were sealed for thousands of years." Ben pulled up files from his computer. The Egyptian cave symbols appeared on his screen next to the alien photos. They were nearly identical. "It gets stranger," Ben said. "Look at this." He showed her more photos from the Zephyrian tour. "These building designs, the way their city is laid out, even the patterns on their clothes. I've seen all of this before in ancient human ruins." Amy sat down heavily in her chair. "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I don't know yet, but I think we need to dig deeper into this. Can you help me translate more of the Zephyrian historical texts? The ones Commander Veltar showed us but didn't want to explain in detail?" Amy nodded. "I recorded everything during our tour. Let me see what I can pull from the files." While Ben and Amy worked on the historical mystery, engineer Paul Mitchell was having his own strange discoveries. He had been studying the technical manuals the Zephyrians had given them, hoping to understand their advanced technology. Paul called his assistant, Lisa Harper, into the engineering lab. Lisa was a quantum physicist who understood things about space and time that made Paul's head hurt. "Lisa, look at this," Paul said, pointing at his computer screen. "These Zephyrian power systems use mathematical formulas that look exactly like the ones Professor Johnson developed at MIT 3 years ago." Lisa looked at the equations. "That's impossible, Paul. Professor Johnson's work was completely new. No one had ever thought of those ideas before." "That's what I thought too," Paul said. "But look at this." He pulled up more files. "Their space drive systems, their computer networks, even their security codes. All of them use principles that human scientists either just discovered or are still working on." Lisa studied the files for an hour. When she finally looked up, her face was pale. "Paul, I tried something. I used human encryption methods on their security systems." "What happened?" "They opened immediately, like they recognized the codes." Lisa's voice was shaking. "It's as if their technology was designed to work with human algorithms." Paul stared at her. "That makes no sense. They said they've never met humans before." Meanwhile, Lisa had started working on another project. She was studying the star charts the Zephyrians had given them, trying to understand how alien civilizations were spread across the galaxy. The more she studied the charts, the more confused she became. She called Dr. Carter and asked him to meet her in the navigation room. "Dr. Carter, I've been looking at how alien civilizations are distributed across space," Lisa said. "Look at this pattern." She showed him a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Colored dots showed where different alien species lived. Lines connected the dots, showing trade routes and communication paths. "Do you see it?" Lisa asked. Ben studied the map carefully. Suddenly, his eyes widened. "This is a breadcrumb pattern." "Exactly. It's a colonization strategy that human planners developed for exploring new parts of space. You establish a base, then spread out to nearby systems, then use those as jumping-off points for further expansion. But this pattern shows alien civilizations that supposedly developed independently." Ben was quiet for a long moment. "Lisa, according to the Zephyrians, these civilizations have been separate for thousands of years. They shouldn't all be using the same expansion strategy. Unless," Lisa said quietly, "they all learned it from the same source." That evening, Ben called a secret meeting in Admiral Sullivan's quarters. He brought Amy, Paul, and Lisa with him. Captain Morrison joined them as well. "What you're about to hear must stay in this room," Ben said. "We've discovered things that don't make sense." He told them about the symbols, the technology similarities, and the colonization patterns. Amy showed them her translations of Zephyrian, religious texts that mentioned the first ones who had supposedly vanished long ago. "According to their holy books," Amy said, "the first ones were gods who created all knowledge and then disappeared. The Zephyrians and other aliens built their civilizations on the leftover pieces of First One technology." Paul added his discoveries about the technology matches. "Their most advanced systems all use human-designed principles. It's like someone took human technology and scattered it across the galaxy millions of years ago." Lisa presented her star charts. "And all the alien civilizations follow human expansion patterns. The probability of this happening by chance is basically zero." Admiral Sullivan listened to everything without speaking. When they finished, she was quiet for a long time. "What are you all suggesting?" she finally asked. Ben took a deep breath. "Admiral, I think humans have been in space before, long before, and somehow we've forgotten about it." "That's impossible," Captain Morrison said. "Human civilization is only a few thousand years old." "Is it?" Ben asked. "What if something happened to make us forget? What if we lost our history somehow?" Amy pulled up more translated texts. "There's something else. The Zephyrian creation, myths talk about a great war among the first ones. They say the first ones destroyed themselves fighting each other, and only fragments of their knowledge survived." Lisa nodded. "And look at this. I've been studying the age of different star systems where aliens live. Many of them show signs of ancient terraforming, but the current alien species haven't been there long enough to have done the work." Paul brought up more technical files. "Plus, I found something else. Hidden in the Zephyrian computer systems are what look like old human ship designs, really old and really advanced." Admiral Sullivan stood up and walked to the window. She stared out at the stars for several minutes. "If what you're suggesting is true," she said, "then everything we know about human history is wrong." "There's only one way to find out," Ben said. "We need to investigate further. But we have to be careful. If the Zephyrians are hiding something, they might not want us to discover the truth." "What do you need?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Access to more alien archives, older ones, places where the real history might be stored." Ben looked at his team. "And we need to do it without the Zephyrians knowing what we're looking for." Admiral Sullivan thought for a moment. "I'll see what I can arrange. But people, if you're right about this, it changes everything. Not just for us, but for every alien species in the galaxy." As the meeting ended, None of them noticed that their ship's computers had started accessing databases they had never connected to before. Deep in space, ancient systems were awakening, responding to signals they had been waiting millions of years to receive. The humans were asking the right questions. Soon they would be ready for the answers. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Aurora, watching the stars through the main screen. He had been traveling through space for 3 months now, mapping new areas that no human had ever seen before. The job was usually quiet, but today something was different. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. She was the ship's language expert, and her voice sounded excited. "It's not from Earth. It's coming from somewhere else." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of signal?" "It's a message, sir, but it's in a language I've never heard before." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her computer. "Wait, there are patterns here, mathematical sequences. They're trying to teach us their language." The message played through the ship's speakers. It sounded like music mixed with clicks and soft tones. Jake had heard many alien languages in his training, but this one was completely new. "How long will it take you to understand it?" Jake asked. Amy looked at her screen again. "Usually it takes months to decode a new language, but this one—" "It's strange, sir. Some of these patterns feel familiar. I think I can have something in a few hours." Jake nodded. "Do it. And Amy, keep this quiet for now." 2 hours later, Amy called Jake back to her station. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking slightly. "I've got it translated, Captain. You're not going to believe this." She pressed a button, and the alien message played again. This time, words appeared on the screen in English. "Greetings to the newest children of the stars. We are the Zephyrian Collective, guardians of galactic peace for 10,000 years. We welcome humanity to the community of thinking beings. You have taken your first steps into the larger universe, and we are here to guide you as we have guided all young species before you." Jake stared at the screen. "They think we're new to space travel." "That's not all, sir." Amy's voice was quiet. "They're sending coordinates. They want to meet us." Jake immediately sent a message back to Earth. Within hours, he received new orders. Admiral Kate Sullivan would lead a diplomatic mission to meet these aliens. Jake was to wait for her arrival and then escort her ship to the meeting point. 3 days later, Admiral Sullivan's ship Endeavor arrived at Jake's location. Kate Sullivan was known throughout the Earth military as a smart and careful leader. She had dealt with first contact situations before, but never with aliens who claimed to rule the galaxy. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Sullivan said as she came aboard the Aurora. "What's your assessment of the situation?" "The aliens seem friendly, Admiral, but there's something strange about how quickly our language expert decoded their message. Usually these things take much longer." Kate nodded. "I've brought Dr. Ben Carter with me. He's our best expert on ancient history and archaeology. If these aliens have been around for 10,000 years, he might spot things that others would miss." The two ships traveled together to the coordinates the aliens had given them. When they arrived, they found a massive space station waiting for them. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built, with towers that stretched for miles, and lights that seemed to dance across its surface. "Welcome, young humans," came a voice over their communication system. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective. Please dock your ships and join us." Jake and Admiral Sullivan took a small shuttle to the alien station. Dr. Carter came with them, along with Amy Rodriguez and a few other crew members. As they flew closer to the station, they could see that it was even more impressive than it had looked from far away. The docking bay was enormous, filled with ships of many different designs. Some looked like the Zephyrian ship they had seen, but others were completely different. Jake realized that many different alien species must be part of this collective. Commander Veltar met them at the airlock. He was tall and thin with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes. He wore robes that seemed to shimmer and change color as he moved. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Veltar said. His voice was kind, but Jake noticed that he spoke to them the way an adult might speak to children. "You must be amazed by what you see here. Do not worry. All new species feel overwhelmed at first." Admiral Sullivan stepped forward. "Thank you for welcoming us, Commander. We're honored to meet you." "Of course," Veltar said with a smile. "Come, let me show you what your species might achieve someday, given enough time and guidance." He led them through corridors filled with wonders. They saw rooms where gravity seemed to work in different directions, gardens where plants grew in impossible shapes, and windows that showed views of distant worlds in real time. "This is our historical archive," Veltar said as they entered a vast library. "Here we keep the records of all the species we have guided over the millennia. Soon, we will add humanity's story to our collection." Dr. Carter was studying the walls carefully. Jake noticed that the old archaeologist seemed troubled by something, but he stayed quiet. "How many species are part of your collective?" Admiral Sullivan asked. 47 thinking species now call the galaxy home," Veltar replied proudly. "We have helped each one grow from primitive beginnings to spacefaring civilization. Some have taken longer than others, but we are patient teachers." "And how long do you think it will take humanity to reach your level?" Admiral Sullivan asked. Veltar paused as if considering the question carefully. "Your species shows promise, but you are still very young. Perhaps in 4,000 or 5,000 years you might develop basic space technology. In 10,000 years you could possibly join our council as junior members." Jake felt a flash of anger at the alien's words, but Admiral Sullivan remained calm. "We appreciate your guidance, Commander." They continued the tour, seeing more impossible technologies and listening to Veltar explain how long it had taken other species to develop each advancement. Always the message was the same. Humans were newcomers who had much to learn. As they prepared to return to their ships, Veltar gave them a star chart. "We have assigned your species a small sector on the edge of our territory. You may develop these worlds as your abilities allow. We will check on your progress from time to time." Back on the Aurora, Jake met with Admiral Sullivan and Dr. Carter. "What did you think of that?" Kate asked. Dr. Carter looked worried. "Admiral, I saw things in that archive that shouldn't exist. Symbols and patterns that I recognize from human archaeology, but the Zephyrians claim they're ancient alien writing." "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying that something is very wrong here. Either these aliens are lying to us, or there's something about human history that we don't understand." Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. "Keep investigating." "Doctor?" Quietly, "Something tells me that humanity's story is far from over." As the human ships prepared to leave Nexus Prime, none of them noticed that several ancient systems deep within the station had begun to activate for the first time in millions of years. The return of humanity had awakened something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The swarm homeworld filled the view screen like a living nightmare. Captain Vexhale had seen many planets in his career, but nothing had prepared him for this sight. The entire surface writhed with organic structures that pulsed and grew like infected tissue. Massive bioships hung in the atmosphere like fruit on a diseased tree, constantly spawning smaller vessels that swarmed through the acid-green clouds. "Sir," Kylara reported from her station, "I'm detecting over 10,000 bioships in various stages of development. The planet's entire ecosystem has been converted to swarm biology." Admiral Blake's voice cut through the communication system from the USS Defiant. "All ships, this is Admiral Blake. Today we end this threat permanently. Remember, our goal is not conquest or occupation. Our goal is complete elimination." Vexhale opened a channel to the human flagship. "Admiral, I must protest one final time. What you're planning violates every galactic convention on warfare and environmental protection. The damage you'll cause could affect neighboring star systems." Blake's image appeared on his screen, her expression cold and determined. "Captain, the swarm has already violated every natural law by existing. We're not damaging the environment. We're performing surgery to remove a cancer." The first phase of the human attack began with something Vexahall had never seen before. Systematic orbital bombardment designed not to disable, but to completely destroy. Captain John Parker led a squadron of human bombers that deployed weapons, unlike anything in the galactic database. "What are those devices?" Dr. Peltar asked, as the human ships released clouds of metallic objects into the planet's atmosphere. Dr. Chen's voice answered from the Discovery. "Molecular disruptor bombs. They break down organic compounds at the atomic level. Anything with swarm DNA will simply cease to exist." The explosions that followed were unlike conventional weapons. Instead of fire and shrapnel, the bombs created expanding spheres of absolute destruction that dissolved everything they touched. Massive bioships simply vanished, their molecular structure unraveling in seconds. "Sir," his tactical officer called out in amazement, "the bombs are targeting specific genetic markers. They're destroying swarm biology while leaving inorganic matter intact." But the humans weren't satisfied with just destroying the surface installations. Commander Lisa Torres coordinated what they called deep strike operations, using kinetic weapons that punched through the planet's crust. These weren't precision strikes meant to disable specific targets. They were designed to crack the planet open and expose the underground swarm installations to orbital bombardment. "They're breaking the world apart," Dr. Peltar whispered as massive fault lines appeared across continents. The planet's response was immediate and terrifying. Billions of swarm organisms erupted from underground tunnels, rising into the atmosphere like a living storm. Bioships that had been growing beneath the surface launched themselves toward the human fleet in a final desperate assault. But the humans had prepared for this moment. Dr. Chen's biological warfare program revealed its full scope as human ships, released clouds of what she called genetic viruses into the approaching swarm formations. These weren't simple toxins or poisons. They were engineered organisms designed to rewrite swarm DNA, turning the creature's own biological processes against them. "It's beautiful," Dr. Chen reported with scientific fascination as the viruses took effect. "The swarm's hive mind is collapsing. They're losing the ability to coordinate, to communicate, even to recognize each other as the same species." Vexhal watched in horror and amazement as the massive swarm assault dissolved into chaos. Bioships began attacking each other, their corrupted programming making them see allies as enemies. The creatures that had coordinated perfectly for millions of years were reduced to confused animals fighting for survival. Colonel Rodriguez led the final ground assault with a brutality that made Vexhal's stomach turn. Human Marines in sealed armor suits landed on the planet's surface, not to capture territory, but to ensure nothing remained alive. They used weapons that sprayed liquid fire, deployed gases that ate through organic matter, and planted charges that would sterilize entire regions. "Sir," Kylara reported, "the human ground forces are targeting the planet's core biofacilities. They're not trying to capture anything. They're just destroying everything." The systematic destruction continued for hours. Human ships moved through the planet's atmosphere like immune system cells, identifying and eliminating every trace of swarm biology. When they found underground facilities, they collapsed them with explosives. When they found breeding pools, they poisoned them with chemical weapons. When they found any form of swarm life, they eliminated it completely. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral, we've reached the planetary core. The main hive mind is located in a massive organic structure approximately 50 kilometers beneath the surface." "Understood," Blake replied. "Deploy the final solution." Dr. Chen had saved her most devastating weapon for last. The retrovirus bomb was a biological weapon designed to rewrite the fundamental genetic structure of any swarm organism it encountered. Instead of simply killing them, it would transform them into harmless creatures, incapable of aggression or reproduction. "This is worse than death," Dr. Peltar observed as he watched the weapon's effects through the ship's sensors. "She's erasing their species from existence." The virus spread through the planet's core like wildfire, reaching every connected organism through the swarm's own biological network. The massive hive mind that had coordinated the destruction of dozens of worlds simply ceased to exist, its consciousness dissolving as its genetic programming was overwritten. But the humans still weren't finished. Admiral Blake ordered the deployment of what she called sterilization protocols. Human ships began releasing clouds of engineered bacteria designed to consume any remaining organic matter on the planet's surface. These organisms would ensure that nothing capable of supporting swarm life could ever grow on this world again. "The soil itself is being sterilized," Dr. Peltar reported in amazement. "They're making it impossible for any form of swarm biology to ever exist here again." The final phase involved something that shocked even Vexa Hall's understanding of human ruthlessness. Instead of leaving the dead world behind, human ships began systematic mining operations to extract every trace of useful material from the planet's crust. "What are they doing now?" Vex Hal asked. Dr. Chen's response was matter-of-fact. "Resource extraction. This planet contains valuable minerals we can use for ship construction and weapon manufacturing. No sense wasting useful materials." The humans stripped the dead world bare, taking everything of value and leaving behind a sterile rock incapable of supporting any form of life. It was efficiency taken to its logical extreme, ensuring that even the swarm's corpse would serve human purposes. 3 days later, the human fleet prepared to depart. The swarm homeworld was gone, replaced by a lifeless ball of rock floating in space. Across the galaxy, the remaining swarm creatures had either died from the genetic virus or been transformed into harmless animals incapable of threatening anyone. "It's over," Admiral Blake announced to the assembled fleet. "The Void Swarm no longer exists as a species capable of threatening civilized life." Vex Hall stared at the dead world on his view screen and felt a mixture of gratitude and terror. His people were safe. The galaxy was safe. But the methods used to achieve this safety had revealed something about humanity that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Admiral," he said during their final communication, "what you've accomplished here will be remembered throughout galactic history. But I must ask, what happens now? What does your species plan to do next?" Blake's smile was as cold as the void itself. "We go home, Captain, unless someone else needs our help with a problem they can't solve." As the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Vex Hal understood that the galaxy had gained something unprecedented, a species capable of solving any existential threat permanently. Whether that was a blessing or a curse would depend entirely on how humanity chose to use that power. The swarm was gone forever, but the Deathworlders who had eliminated them remained somewhere out there in the darkness between stars, waiting for the next call for help. The galaxy would never be the same.